Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We will have our usual talim, inshallah. But before that, I request all the brothers who are blocking, please move your cars. जिन हजरात की गाड़ियाँ ठीक नहीं खड़ी, वो अपनी गाड़ियाँ हटा लीजिए.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد قال الله تعالى في القرآن العظيم قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون والذين هم عن اللغو معرضون والذين هم للزكاة فاعلون صدق الله العظيم. Yesterday we started discussing those ayat in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described those believers who have obtained the greatest success and the ones that will be the inheritors of Jannah. And so we talked about one of the qualities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned of them, which is that they concentrate in their salah and they're submissive in their salah. After this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. There are those who turn away from all sorts of vain and useless talk. We won't go into much detail with regards to this because we've already discussed in some detail when we mentioned the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which he said, مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. The one who believes in Allah, whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day, then he should speak good or stay silent. And so we talked over there about the importance of watching our words and staying away from those things which first and foremost are harmful, and then even those things which may not necessarily be harmful to others or ourselves, but in general they're not of any benefit for us. This would also fall under al-laghu, which is that speech which has absolutely no benefit. And so the believers are those who stay away from that which is la ya'nihi, right? As the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, min husni islam al-mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'nihi. That from the greatness of a person's Islam is that he leaves that which does not concern him and that which does not benefit him. And so, as believers, we have to stay away from speaking about things that first and foremost will harm us, or even if it doesn't harm us, it doesn't have any sort of benefit from us. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. There are those who do zakat. So there's a difference of opinion on the tafsir of this ayah, so I'll mention both opinions just so we can learn a lesson from both. The first dominant opinion is that this is referring to zakah of the wealth, spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so a common factor amongst the believers is that they all spend in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is mentioned right in the beginning of the Quran, right from the get-go. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing those who will truly benefit from the Quran, who will truly obtain guidance from the Quran. And Allah says, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. They are those who spend from that which they own. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will never attain piety until you spend from that which you love. So spending from what we love shows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that even though we have this deep-seated, deep-rooted love for wealth in our hearts, and we work so hard for this wealth, yet we're still giving up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this shows a high level of iman. And we know there's many punishments when we're specifically referring to zakat and that which is fard upon us to spend. There are many punishments mentioned, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran itself says, وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ وَلَا يُنْفِقُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَبَشِّرْهُم بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Those who keep and hoard their gold and silver and do not spend it in the way of Allah, and the ulama say it's referring to zakat, then give them glad tidings of a painful punishment. And Allah describes the punishment. And similarly is a hadith that mentions that wealth that was not, zakat was not paid over it, on the day of judgment, it will become a snake and it will chase this person in the hereafter. And so it is very important that we give great importance to this zakat, which is fard, and on top of that, try to spend more of our wealth as much as we can. The other opinion regarding this ayah is وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. Is zakat refers to tazkiyatun nafs, to purify your own nafs, to purify your own self. And so, because of the fact that Allah says fa'ilun, normally when Allah talks about zakat, Allah says wa'atu zakat, to give zakat. Fa'ilun means to do. So those ulama who said this means tazkiyatun nafs, they say because Allah says fa'ilun, that they're engaged in actions for the purpose of tazkiyatun nafs, for the purpose of purifying their own nafs. And so they're constantly engaged, they're constantly worried that, do I have some sort of diseases of the heart? Do I have arrogance? Do I have jealousy? Do I have all these different things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered me not to have in my heart? And so they're constantly engaged in purifying themselves. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, that the person who has purified the nafs has indeed gotten success. And before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually swore by, I think, 13 or 14 different swears and different aqsam that this person has gotten success. And so it is very important for us to be constantly engaged in purifying ourselves and always be worried. Never assume that you're always a good person. No, we always have to be worried that I need to work on myself and I need to purify my nafs and to make my nafs from those about whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. That, O nafs, which is now satisfied with that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered and decreed, return to your Lord in a state that you are pleased and you are made pleased, and enter from amongst my slaves and enter into Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from amongst them and grant us all tawfiq. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.